The morning had started like any other at Westside Memorial Hospital. I arrived at 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes early as I had done for the past 10 years. The familiar scent of disinfectant filled the air as I swiped my badge and greeted the night shift nurses with a warm smile. My name is Sarah Johnson, and nursing was not just my profession, it was my calling. I checked my patient assignments and began my rounds. Room 415 held Mr. Rodriguez, recovering from bypass surgery. Room 417 was Mrs. Chen, awaiting discharge after her gallbladder removal. Room 419 contained Mr. Williams, stabilized after a severe asthma attack. Each patient received my undivided attention as I checked vitals, administered medications, and offered reassurance. This routine had become second nature after a decade of service. The hospital corridors had always felt like home. The nurses' station where we shared quiet moments between rounds. The break room where we celebrated birthdays with grocery store cupcakes. The on-call room where I had caught brief naps during double shifts. Every corner held memories of lives saved, patients comforted, and colleagues supported. The intercom crackled at 10:32 a.m. "Nurse Johnson, please report to Human Resources immediately." The voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Several colleagues glanced in my direction, eyebrows raised in silent question. I shrugged, handed off my patient charts to Nurse Rivera, and made my way to the elevator. The HR office felt unnaturally cold when I entered. Ms. Winters, the department head, sat rigidly behind her desk. Beside her was Dr. Maxwell, the new department head who had joined the hospital 3 months ago. His thin lips curled into what might have been a smile but never reached his eyes. Director Patterson, my direct supervisor, stared at her clasped hands, refusing to meet my gaze. "Please have a seat, Ms. Johnson." Ms. Winters gestured to the lone chair facing the three of them. "We have called you here regarding a serious medication error that occurred during your shift yesterday." My stomach dropped. What medication error? All my administrations were documented and double-checked as per protocol. Dr. Maxwell slid a paper across the desk. "The logs show you administered 200 mg of cardizem to patient Harriet Freeman in room 422 yesterday at 2:15 p.m. The correct dose was 20 mg. The patient experienced dangerous hypotension as a result." I stared at the log in disbelief. That is not possible. I administered 20 mg exactly, and I was not even assigned to room 422 yesterday. I was in the ICU all afternoon. "The records clearly show otherwise," Dr. Maxwell replied, his voice eerily calm. Director Patterson finally spoke. "Sarah, I have always respected your work, but the documentation is irrefutable. The medication error could have been fatal." "This is wrong," I insisted, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. "Check the security footage. Check the badge swipes. I did not administer that medication." Ms. Winters shuffled some papers. "Unfortunately, due to the severity of this error and our zero-tolerance policy, we are terminating your employment effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your belongings." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the world tilted around me. This was not a mistake. This was deliberate. My mind raced back to the incident 3 weeks ago when I had reported Dr. Maxwell for making racially charged comments about certain nurses not belonging in prestigious institutions. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. Security Officer Jenkins waited outside, his face apologetic. "I am sorry about this, Sarah," he whispered as we walked to the locker room. Colleagues watched in shocked silence as I emptied my locker into a cardboard box. Nurse Rivera squeezed my shoulder. "This is not right," she murmured. "We all know it." The drive home felt surreal. 10 years of dedicated service erased in a single morning. The box on my passenger seat contained personal items, but not what truly mattered: my reputation, my career, my financial security. As a single mother to 16-year-old Zoe, the implications were overwhelming. Mortgage payment due next week. Car insurance the week after. College application fees for Zoe coming up soon. At home, I placed the box beside the display of nursing excellence awards and certifications that lined my living room wall. Tangible proof of a career that had seemed unshakable just hours before. Now they were merely glass and metal, monuments to a life suddenly thrown into chaos. Dawn broke with cruel indifference to my circumstances. Sleep had eluded me all night, my mind cycling endlessly through questions without answers, problems without solutions. The ceiling had become a blank canvas for my projected fears. How would I pay the bills? Who would hire a nurse fired for a medication error? How would I tell Zoe that our carefully constructed life was suddenly on shaky ground? I left a note for my daughter, still asleep in her bedroom, surrounded by college brochures and dream journals. "Gone for a walk, back soon, love you." The words felt inadequate, but they were all I could manage. The local park opened at 6:00 a.m., and I found myself drawn to its familiar paths. Autumn had transformed the landscape into a canvas of amber and gold. Dew glistened on grass that crunched softly beneath my sneakers. The morning air carried a crisp chill that cleared my head even as my heart remained heavy. My thoughts turned practical as I walked. My savings would cover expenses for approximately 3 months if I was extremely careful. I could apply for positions at smaller clinics or consider home health care. My nursing license remained valid despite the termination. Perhaps medical record administration? Less fulfilling but potentially more stable. The graveled path curved around a small pond where ducks glided peacefully across the surface. Their simple existence, free from mortgages, college tuition, and workplace discrimination, seemed enviable in that moment. I had completed nearly a full circuit of the park when I heard it, a dull thud followed by a muffled gasp. Rounding the bend, I spotted an elderly man collapsed on the path ahead. He wore expensive jogging clothes, moisture-wicking fabric in subdued colors, custom running shoes. His silver hair contrasted sharply with his rapidly reddening face as he clutched his chest. My body reacted before my mind fully processed the scene. 10 years of emergency response training overrode my personal crisis as I ran toward him. Kneeling beside him, I checked his pulse, weak and erratic. His breathing was shallow, skin clammy. "Sir, can you hear me?" I asked, positioning him flat on his back. No response except a faint groan. Classic signs of cardiac arrest beginning. A young woman had stopped nearby, frozen in shock. "Call 911, I instructed her firmly. "Tell them we have a cardiac event in Lakeside Park near the east entrance. Tell them CPR is in progress." I tilted his head back to open the airway and began chest compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, I counted aloud, maintaining the rhythm I had practiced countless times. The world narrowed to this single task: compression, depth, hand position, steady pace. Time stretched and compressed simultaneously. Each second felt like an hour, yet the minutes blurred together. Sweat beaded on my forehead despite the cool morning air. "Stay with me," I murmured to the unconscious man. "Help is coming, stay with me." After what seemed like an eternity but was likely only minutes, his eyelids fluttered. A weak cough. Then his eyes opened, confused but alert. Relief flooded through me as I checked his pulse again. stronger now, though still concerning. Park security arrived on a golf cart, followed closely by two joggers who identified themselves as off-duty EMTs. Suspected cardiac event, I reported, shifting to allow them access while maintaining a monitoring position. Approximately 5 minutes since collapse, patient regained consciousness following CPR. No AED was available. In the distance, sirens wailed, the cavalry arriving. I stepped back, suddenly aware of the small crowd that had gathered. My scrubs and hospital ID badge were gone. I was just a civilian now. My job here was done. As the paramedics approached with their equipment, I began to slip away. No paperwork to complete. No follow-up required. Just another anonymous good deed in a world that had recently shown me little kindness. The paramedics worked with practiced efficiency, attaching monitoring equipment and administering oxygen to the elderly patient. I had retreated to a bench about 30 feet away, my adrenaline fatting, the reality of my situation seeping back into my consciousness. From this distance, I watched as they stabilized the man and prepared to transport him. BP is 110/70 and stabilizing, one paramedic announced. Pulse irregular but strengthening. Sir, do you know where you are? The man nodded weakly, attempting to sit up despite gentle restraint from the medical team. He spoke with surprising clarity for someone who had been unconscious minutes before. Lakeside Park, Tuesday morning, October 12th. His voice carried across the distance, stronger than expected. Good, we need to transport you to the hospital for evaluation, the lead paramedic explained. Likely a cardiac event. Do you have any known heart conditions? The man gestured dismissively. Mild arrhythmia, nothing serious. His eyes scanned the gathered onlookers. Where is she, the woman who helped me? I ducked my head, uncomfortable with the attention. My intervention had been instinctive, not heroic. The last thing I needed was publicity or questions about my professional status. Sir, we need to get you to the hospital, the paramedic insisted, motioning toward the ambulance. Not until I speak with her. His tone shifted from conversational to commanding in an instant. This was someone accustomed to having his instructions followed. The paramedics exchanged glances but continued their preparations. As they transferred him to a stretcher, he continued scanning the area. There, he pointed directly at me. The woman on the bench, please ask her to come here before we leave. A young paramedic approached me hesitantly. Excuse me, ma'am. The patient is asking to speak with you before transport, just for a moment if possible. I considered refusing, making a polite excuse about needing to leave. But something in his insistence gave me pause. With reluctance, I approached the ambulance where they had loaded the stretcher. The man studied me intently, his piercing blue eyes surprisingly alert. You saved my life, he stated simply. I just happened to be in the right place, I replied, uncomfortable with the gratitude. Anyone with basic training would have done the same. But it was you who did it, he extended a slightly trembling hand. Richard Thornton. The name hit me with physical force. Richard Thornton, chairman of the board of directors at Westside Memorial Hospital. The very top of the organizational hierarchy that had just discarded my career. I struggled to keep my expression neutral as I briefly shook his outstretched hand. Sarah Johnson, I replied automatically, immediately regretting revealing my name. His eyes widened slightly. Recognition flickered across his face, though not of me personally. Johnson, you work at Westside. I did. The words felt like stones in my mouth. Until yesterday. Before he could respond, the paramedic interrupted. "Sir, we really need to transport you now. Your condition requires immediate medical attention." Thornton nodded but reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small leather-bound notebook and pen. "Your contact information, please, Ms. Johnson." "That is not necessary," I protested. "I was just doing my duty." "Indulge an old man who owes you his life," he insisted, extending the notebook with surprising steadiness. Something in his expression, determination tinged with genuine gratitude, made refusal seem impossible. I wrote my phone number and email address quickly, then stepped back from the ambulance. "Please take care of yourself, Mr. Thornton." "I intend to," he replied, a curious intensity in his gaze. "And I intend to remember what happened here today." The ambulance doors closed, and the vehicle pulled away with lights flashing but no siren. The small crowd dispersed, returning to morning routines and exercise regimens. I stood alone on the path, uncertain what had just transpired but feeling strangely exposed. The walk home was a blur of conflicting emotions. The satisfaction of successful intervention warred with the bitter irony of saving the life of someone connected to the institution that had just destroyed my career. Would Thornton even remember our brief interaction once he received proper medical care? Would he care about the circumstances of my termination if he did remember? Zoe was awake when I returned, preparing for school with typical teenage focus. "Mom, where were you? Are you okay?" Her perceptiveness had always been uncanny. "Just needed some fresh air," I answered, forcing a smile. "Did you finish your English essay?" The day passed in a haze of job applications sent into the digital void. Each submission required explanation of my termination, carefully worded to avoid both dishonesty and self-incrimination. The rejections would come later, but their inevitability hung over each application like a shadow. By evening, my phone had begun ringing with calls from unknown numbers. Debt collectors already. Too soon, surely. I silenced the device after the third call, unwilling to face whatever new challenge lurked on the other end of the line. That night, as I stared at my ceiling once again, I had no idea that those ignored calls represented not a new problem, but the beginning of an unexpected solution. Richard Thornton settled into his home office, the hospital discharge papers scattered across his mahogany desk. Against medical advice, he had insisted on returning home rather than remaining overnight for observation. The doctors had relented only after he signed multiple liability waivers and promised to rest while monitored by his private nurse. The cardiac event had been minor, a warning rather than a crisis, thanks to prompt intervention. The face of the woman in the park remained clear in his mind. Sarah Johnson. Her name had nagged at his memory during the ambulance ride. Something about recent personnel changes, something that required investigation. "Jeffries," he called to his assistant, "bring me the termination reports from Westside for the past 3 months, and get me Dr. Shelby from cardiology." While waiting, he accessed the hospital's personnel database from his secure home terminal. The search for Johnson, Sarah returned her employee profile. 10 years of service, exemplary performance reviews, 3 commendations for excellence in patient care, specialized training in emergency response and critical care, and a termination notice dated yesterday, medication error potentially fatal. Thornton frowned. The profile photo showed a confident black woman in her early 40s, unmistakably his rescuer from the park. Something about the termination felt wrong. Nurses with her experience level rarely made catastrophic medication errors. especially ones with spotless decade-long records. Dr. Shelby answered on the second ring. "Richard, you should be resting," she admonished without preamble. "I am resting," he assured her. "While working, tell me about Dr. Maxwell, the new department head in internal medicine." A pause, technically brilliant, administratively efficient, interpersonally complicated. Elaborate on complicated. Dr. Shelby sighed. There have been whispers, nothing official. Staff turnover in his department has increased notably since his arrival 3 months ago. Any patterns to the turnover? Another pause, longer this time. "Richard, are you asking what I think you are asking?" "I am asking for your observations, Catherine, professional and personal." 5 of the 7 departures under his supervision have been minorities. 3 black nurses, 1 Hispanic doctor, and 1 Asian lab technician. But correlation is not causation. And the causes listed for these departures: various performance issues, all thoroughly documented. Thornton tapped his pen against the desk. Too thoroughly, perhaps. Jeffries entered with a thick folder. "The termination report, sir, and Mr. Lowell from legal is on line 2. Thornton thanked Dr. Shelby and switched to the legal call. "Harold, I need security footage from internal medicine, specifically the medication room and nursing stations. Past week, focus on after-hours access." "That requires approval from—" "I am giving approval. Patient safety concern. Have it sent to my secure server within the hour." While waiting for the footage, Thornton reviewed Sarah Johnson's termination documentation. The medication error seemed meticulously recorded. Timestamps, dosage amounts, patient reaction, all properly documented. Too perfect, perhaps. He also discovered a report filed by Johnson 3 weeks earlier, alleging inappropriate comments from Dr. Maxwell regarding certain nurses not belonging in prestigious institutions. The report had been investigated and dismissed as a misunderstanding. His tablet chimed with the arrival of security footage. Hours of video compressed into a searchable database. He narrowed parameters. Medication room previous week between 8:00 p.m. and 6:00 a.m. At 11:42 p.m. on Sunday night, Dr. Maxwell entered the medication room alone, unusual for a department head. He remained inside for 7 minutes. The following day, Sarah Johnson was terminated for a medication error allegedly occurring during her Monday afternoon shift. Thornton expanded the search, reviewing badge access logs. Johnson had not entered room 422 at all on Monday. Her badge showed consistent access to the ICU wing, matching her assigned section. The picture clarified with disturbing precision. Maxwell had falsified records to eliminate a nurse who had filed a complaint against him, and this was unlikely his first such action. The pattern Dr. Shelby had observed suggested a systematic removal of minority staff. By evening, Thornton had compiled enough preliminary evidence to warrant formal action. He contacted the hospital CEO, legal director, and human resources head, requesting their presence at his home the following afternoon. "Patient safety and institutional integrity matter," he informed them. "This concerns us all." The executives agreed without hesitation. Thornton's authority remained unquestioned despite his recent health scare. None asked for details in advance, accustomed to his preference for in-person briefings. As his assistant arranged the meeting details, Thornton drafted a certified letter to Sarah Johnson, requesting her presence at the same gathering. The wording was formal but non-threatening, assuring her that the matter concerned her recent termination and suggesting that new information had come to light. "Ensure this is delivered first thing tomorrow morning," he instructed Jeffries, "and confirm receipt." His phone showed 4 unsuccessful attempts to contact Johnson, calls she had likely ignored, assuming them to be routine follow-up or perhaps debt collectors. Understandable, given her circumstances. As evening fell, Thornton reviewed the evidence once more. The irony was not lost on him. Had he not suffered a cardiac event in the park, this injustice might have remained undiscovered. A nurse with an impeccable record had lost her livelihood to apparent discrimination, only to save the life of someone with the power to correct that injustice the very next day. Meanwhile, across town, Sarah Johnson sat at her kitchen table, searching job listings on her laptop while her daughter completed homework nearby. Neither was aware of the forces mobilizing on their behalf, nor of the certified letter that would arrive with the morning mail. The certified letter arrived precisely at 9:17 a.m. I signed for it with trepidation, recognizing the Westside Memorial Hospital insignia on the envelope. Termination paperwork, legal threats. Nothing good could come from communication with the institution that had so callously discarded me. Inside was a single page of heavy cream stationery. Formal letterhead displayed the name Richard Thornton, chairman of the board. The message was brief but unmistakably significant. "Ms. Johnson, your presence is requested at 3:00 p.m. today at 1872 Lakeview Drive regarding matters pertaining to your recent termination from Westside Memorial Hospital. New information has come to light that requires your input. Transportation can be provided if needed. Please confirm your attendance. Regards, Richard Thornton." A business card was paperclipped to the letter, embossed with a phone number marked "Direct Line." My first instinct was refusal. What purpose would be served by prolonging this painful chapter? Yet curiosity mingled with a spark of hope. New information could mean many things, and Thornton had seemed genuinely grateful in the park. Perhaps this was more than standard legal procedure. After dropping Zoe at school, I researched the address. 1872 Lakeview Drive was not the hospital but a private residence in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. The Thornton estate, presumably. The implications were puzzling. Why meet at a private home rather than hospital grounds? I spent hours debating attendance, vacillating between hope and suspicion. What did I have to lose? My job was already gone, my reputation in professional circles already damaged. The worst had already happened, or so I believed. At 2:15 p.m., I called the number on the card and confirmed my attendance. At 2:30 p.m., I changed from casual clothes into a simple but professional navy dress, armor of a sort for whatever awaited me. The Thornton estate appeared on my GPS as an expansive property overlooking the lake. Heavy wrought iron gates opened automatically as I approached in my modest sedan. The driveway curved elegantly through manicured grounds before revealing the main house, a tasteful mansion of stone and glass. What shocked me most was the collection of vehicles already parked in the circular drive. 5 luxury cars, each worth more than my annual salary. Executive vehicles, not merely expensive but statements of corporate authority. My hands trembled slightly as I parked behind the last Mercedes. Whatever awaited inside was bigger than I had anticipated. Multiple stakeholders, high-level involvement. My simple navy dress suddenly felt woefully inadequate. A butler, an actual butler, greeted me at the entrance. Ms. Johnson, Mr. Thornton is expecting you in the conservatory. Please follow me. We walked through marble hallways adorned with tasteful artwork toward the rear of the home. The conservatory proved to be a sun-filled space with glass walls overlooking a meticulously maintained garden. Plants thrived in optimal conditions, much like the wealth that clearly flourished in this rarefied environment. 4 people awaited my arrival. Richard Thornton sat at the head of a polished table, looking remarkably recovered from his cardiac event. Beside him sat Martin Weathers, CEO of Westside Memorial, Elaine Winters from Human Resources, and Harold Lowell, head of the legal department. All rose as I entered. Ms. Johnson, thank you for coming, Thornton said, gesturing to an empty chair positioned prominently at the table. Please have a seat. I remained standing, uncomfortable with the formality. I would prefer to understand the purpose of this meeting first. Thornton nodded respectfully. Of course. We are here to discuss the circumstances of your termination, which I have reason to believe was unjustified and potentially discriminatory. The CEO shifted uncomfortably. The legal director clutched a thick folder. The HR manager avoided eye contact entirely. None appeared pleased to be present. And why is this meeting happening at your private residence rather than hospital grounds? I asked, maintaining a professional tone despite my racing heart. Because this matter requires discretion and, Thornton began, but was interrupted by the doorbell. Moments later, the butler returned, escorting a new arrival. Dr. Robert Maxwell strode in confidently, his expression shifting from professional composure to visible shock when he spotted me. "What is this?" he demanded, looking from face to face. "I was told this meeting concerned departmental leadership opportunities." "And so it does in a manner of speaking," Thornton replied calmly. "Please join us, Dr. Maxwell. We were just discussing Ms. Johnson's termination." Maxwell's confident posture faltered. His eyes darted to the exits, then to the CEO, seeking alliance. Finding none, he reluctantly took the last empty seat, as far from me as the table allowed. Thornton slid a document across the polished surface. Security footage from the medication room, time-stamped 11:42 p.m. Sunday night. Would you care to explain your presence there, Dr. Maxwell, particularly as it relates to the medication error that resulted in Ms. Johnson's termination the following day? The air in the conservatory seemed to thicken. Outside, the perfect garden continued its silent display of carefully cultivated beauty, oblivious to the storm brewing within these glass walls. The battle lines were drawn, and for the first time since my termination, I felt something unexpected take root beside my anger and fear. Hope. The conservatory fell silent as we all stared at the document Thornton had placed on the table. It contained screenshots from security footage showing Dr. Maxwell entering the medication room late Sunday night, followed by time-stamped data from the electronic medication system. "I often check our medication protocols during off-hours," Maxwell responded, his voice steady but lacking its usual authority. "As department head, ensuring proper procedures is part of my responsibility." "Interesting," Thornton replied, sliding forward another document. "Because according to access logs, your badge was used to access room 422's medication records at precisely 11:47 p.m., despite no patients requiring attention at that time." Maxwell straightened his posture. "These implications are inappropriate and potentially slanderous, Mr. Thornton. I have an exemplary record." "As did Nurse Johnson," Thornton countered. 10 years without incident until you arrived 3 months ago. Harold Lowell, the legal director, cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should discuss this matter through proper channels. This informal gathering lacks procedural. Proper channels failed Ms. Johnson, Thornton interrupted. They failed 5 other minority staff members terminated under similarly questionable circumstances since Dr. Maxwell joined our institution. I watched the exchange with growing understanding. This was not merely about my termination. It was about a pattern of behavior that had gone unchallenged until now. CEO Weathers leaned forward. These are serious allegations, Richard. Do you have substantiating evidence beyond coincidental timing? In response, Thornton activated a tablet display embedded in the table. Security footage began playing, showing Dr. Maxwell at a nursing station computer, accessing patient records and medication logs. The timestamp indicated 11:51 p.m. Sunday, hours after his scheduled shift had ended and when no emergencies required his attention. The system logs show modification of patient Harriet Freeman's medication orders during this exact time period, Thornton explained. Modifications made using Dr. Maxwell's credentials, creating a false record of a 200 mg cardizem order instead of the 20 mg actually administered. Coincidence, Maxwell insisted, though his complexion had paled noticeably. Or system error. These logs are not infallible. Perhaps not, Thornton agreed. But when combined with these, he produced another folder, they paint a troubling picture. The folder contained personnel files of the 5 other minority staff members terminated since Maxwell's arrival. Each case involved allegedly irrefutable documentation of serious errors that contradicted otherwise spotless employment histories. Furthermore, Thornton continued, we have Ms. Johnson's harassment complaint from 3 weeks ago, which reported your statement about certain nurses not belonging in prestigious institutions. This complaint was dismissed without proper investigation. Elaine Winters from HR finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. The investigation followed standard protocols. The complaint was deemed unsubstantiated. Because the only witness conveniently retracted their statement after being threatened with scheduling changes, Thornton countered, producing yet another document, an affidavit from a nurse who had originally supported my complaint. Maxwell's professional demeanor cracked. This is absurd. You cannot possibly believe the word of a terminated employee over a department head with my credentials. I believe evidence, Thornton replied simply. And the evidence suggests you manufactured a medication error to remove a nurse who dared report your discriminatory behavior, continuing a pattern of targeting minority staff that has gone unchecked for 3 months. The CEO ran a hand through his thinning hair. If these allegations prove accurate, the hospital faces significant liability, not just from Ms. Johnson, but potentially from all terminated employees. Precisely, Thornton agreed, which is why I insisted on addressing this immediately and directly. I remained silent throughout this exchange, watching the power dynamic shift before my eyes. These executives had failed to protect me, had actively participated in my unjust termination, yet now faced the consequences of their negligence. After nearly 30 minutes of increasingly desperate denials from Maxwell, CEO Weathers finally turned to me. Ms. Johnson, on behalf of Westside Memorial Hospital, I must offer our sincere apology for what appears to be a grave injustice. We failed in our duty to investigate properly and allowed discriminatory practices to go unchecked. The apology felt both vindicating and insufficient. An apology does not restore my career or repair the damage to my reputation, I replied evenly. No, it does not, Weathers acknowledged. Which is why we are prepared to offer immediate reinstatement with a promotion to nursing supervisor for the critical care unit, along with back pay for the period of termination. Harold Lowell placed a document before me. Additionally, this settlement agreement includes compensation for emotional distress and potential damage to your professional standing. The confidentiality clause is standard, but allows you to acknowledge that allegations of medication error were proven false. I glanced at the figure on the document and struggled to maintain my composure. The amount would eliminate my financial concerns for years to come. And Dr. Maxwell? I asked, looking directly at the man who had orchestrated my termination. Dr. Maxwell's employment is terminated, effective immediately, Weathers stated firmly. Security is waiting to escort him from the property and will accompany him to collect personal items from his office tomorrow. Maxwell stood abruptly. This is outrageous. My attorney will. Your attorney will receive copies of all evidence discussed today, Thornton interrupted calmly. I suggest you consider carefully before pursuing action that would make these matters public record. 2 security officers appeared at the conservatory entrance. Maxwell's face contorted with rage as he realized the completeness of his defeat. Without another word, he allowed himself to be escorted from the room. When the door closed behind him, I finally took the seat that had been offered at the beginning of the meeting. The document before me represented not just financial compensation, but restoration of professional dignity. Throughout this reversal of fortune, I maintained the same composure that had allowed me to perform life-saving CPR in the park just days earlier. You have until tomorrow to review the agreement with your own counsel, Lowell advised, though I believe you will find the terms more than fair. I nodded, still processing the dramatic shift in circumstances. And the other employees terminated under similar circumstances will receive similar review and appropriate compensation, Weathers assured me. Your case has exposed a significant failure in our oversight systems. As the meeting concluded, Thornton walked me to my car. The 5 luxury vehicles remained in the circular drive, tangible symbols of institutional power that had bent toward justice rather than perpetuating oppression. Why did you do this? I asked him as we paused beside my modest sedan. He considered the question thoughtfully. Because justice matters, because excellence deserves recognition, not punishment, and because when you saved my life in that park, you did so despite carrying the burden of extreme injustice. He smiled slightly. Sometimes the universe creates extraordinary opportunities for correction. I drove home with the settlement document on my passenger seat, replacing the cardboard box of personal items from just days before. The world had not become perfect, but a significant wrong had been righted through unexpected intervention. 1 month later, I walked through the automatic doors of Westside Memorial Hospital wearing not just scrubs, but the navy blue blazer that designated nursing leadership. My new identification badge read, Sarah Johnson, RN, BSN, Nursing Supervisor, Critical Care. The same security guard who had escorted me out in disgrace now nodded respectfully as I passed. The hospital corridors felt different now, not just a workplace, but a community that had been given an opportunity to heal and improve. Staff members offered warm greetings as I made my morning rounds. Many had heard versions of what happened, though the settlement agreement kept specific details confidential. My first official act as supervisor had been to review staffing patterns and promotion practices throughout the department. The data revealed what many had suspected, but few had documented: systematic barriers to advancement for minority nurses despite equal or superior performance metrics. In the break room, I pinned a notice to the bulletin board. The colorful announcement detailed the newly established Thornton-Johnson Scholarship for Minority Nursing Excellence. The program would provide full tuition and mentorship for 5 nursing students annually, with preference given to candidates committed to serving underrepresented communities. "Is that the program Mr. Thornton mentioned at the board meeting?" asked Nurse Rivera, who had been promoted to charge nurse after my reinstatement. "Yes," I replied. "The first recipients will be selected next semester. The board approved unanimous funding." Richard Thornton had recovered fully from his cardiac event and returned to his duties with renewed purpose. Our unexpected connection had catalyzed significant institutional change. The hospital had implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination protocols with external oversight. Every termination now required multiple levels of review and documentation before proceeding. That afternoon, I led a training session for new nurses from diverse backgrounds. The conference,